Once we turn the calendar to SEC play, there was one team that dominated, and they did so all the way to the end of the season. The Florida Gators are the regular season champion and the #1 seed in the upcoming SEC tournament. They ended off with a big win over Kentucky, 11-game winning streak as they enter the SEC tournament in Nashville coming up this week. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, week 2. With our new anchor, Gabriella Genereaux. I was going to ask you, like, how did it feel now that you're 1 week in?
It felt good. Waking up and coming to work today felt good. I had, my key card. I knew what I was doing. I've met everyone, so it was a great first week.
I open my eyes every morning, and I just pray. I'm like, okay, hopefully we didn't run her away. We didn't run her off. No, she's still in.
No, I told my parents this is the best first week of work I've had. Ever.
Love to hear it. Gabriella, Patrick in the house as well. Great show on tap as there's lots of things going on in the SEC, both in college basketball as well as college baseball. The Florida Gators, as we talked about, will dive more into that matchup against Kentucky. Meanwhile, Texas drops their home finale to their rival in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma's playing really good basketball at the end of the season. The Texas Longhorns, they win their first ever women's SEC tournament title, and Tyler Tanner steps up big time in another, sorry about this, Gabriella, big win over Tennessee. And she was talking about it. She thought we had a vendetta last week. It just happened to work out that there was a lot of Tennessee losing stories. And she was just like,
there was a bad one. I'm biting my words this week after.
And don't worry, because there's more coming at the end of hour 1. And I'm going to tell you what that's all about.
I know. It's going to be bad for me today.
Our resident Tennessee fan / alum, Gabriella, will dive into that. We'll start, though, with the Florida Gators. As we talked about at the top of the show, this is a basketball team. It feels to me like, I'm not sure if you watch a lot of comics or like Marvel movies. It feels to me like Thanos. Just like it feels indestructible.
Yeah.
It feels like they just have all the pieces and they're rolling right now going into the SEC tournament.
Right. It's almost like you watch them and you're like, who's going to beat them?
Yes.
And how are they going to beat them?
Right.
They're looking. And one thing that I find interesting and I'm enjoying this year out of the Florida Gators is the fact that their defense is performing so well, because I feel like last year it was all about the offense, and while they do have a good offense, their defense has really been stepping up in a lot of these games.
Yeah, no question. And also shows you that you really can't judge books by their cover, or you can't jump to conclusions so early in the season.
Correct.
This is the reason why I'm hesitating to make any kind of big, broad reactions about what's going on in college baseball and or college softball.
Right.
Because at the beginning of the season, and Patrick, you know this, I kind of wrote Florida off a little bit. It's like it feels like okay, well, this team, national champion last year, and we'll find out who they are, maybe a 5 seed, 6 seed, 7 seed. And that's how they looked at the beginning of the season, but it lets you know it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, and I wrote them off just because I think that Florida fans and people that follow this Florida program were so spoiled with how good Walter Clayton and Will Richard were that when Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee came in and didn't really do anything, it's like, all right, come on, we just spent all this money to go get these 2 guards from – I mean, Princeton was a pretty premier program, even out of the Ivy League. I know they didn't really have a good year this year, but you could – chalk that up to the fact that Xavier Lee's over in Florida now. And then Boogie Fland was one of the most coveted, I almost just said free agent, but
essentially it's what it is turning into.
Honestly, I might just start calling it that.
I'm just now used to, in college sports, I'm just used to using professional vernacular.
Yeah.
They agree to terms with the school. It sounds weird, but this is the way that it is. And free agency is what the transfer portal's turned into.
With a lot less rail guards.
Yes. It does feel like the Wild Wild West. But no, to your point, in free agency, Florida scooped up a couple guys that have a lot of veteran presence. And it just seems to me now, you still got to win 6 games in a row to win an NCAA championship once that tournament starts. It just seems to me, like you said at the top, they have all the pieces. Whether they want to play with the big guys, or they want to play a guard game, it just seems like they have all the pieces to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, we go back to the Mississippi State game in the midweek last week. They rested Houck for the Kentucky game on Saturday. I was kind of expecting them to rest him for that game as well, just because they already had the top seed locked up.
Right.
But they beat Mississippi State pretty handedly, even without their best player. And what does he do? He comes back with a vengeance, 20 more points. And you and I have both talked about this on this show. The added dimension with the three-point shooting is really what makes him probably the best 4, maybe even 5. I know Condon is the main guy that plays the 5 for them, but he is probably the best power forward in the country just because he adds that level from beyond the arc. He can go get rebounds, 9 rebounds in the game against Kentucky, but he can also dish it out and get steals on the defensive end. I would not be surprised if he was a first-round pick.
Yeah, no question. He's made a lot of money this year, showing in the term stretch 4 or stretch 3 kind of gets used around now a lot, where you can, as you said, stretch the floor because you can now shoot that 3-point shot. It seems to me that he's been able to do that throughout the course of the year. And we'll get to Todd Golden's comments in a second. But first, let's talk big picture. Now we have the 16 teams that will be going into the SEC tournament. We now know where they will be slated. It feels to me like, unlike last year, and you watched this journey play out in real time because the Auburn Tigers were the number 1 team last year, being a team reporter for Auburn. It felt like there was a lot more elite teams last year, but it still feels like the conference is really deep.
Yeah, and I do also remember that was kind of when Auburn was falling apart a little bit. We got a little nervous over there in Auburn because if you guys remember, did they lose the first game in the SEC tournament?
It's either the first or second. It was early.
I think it was second. They won the first, and then they lost to Tennessee, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, they lost. They definitely lost to Tennessee, so I can remember which game it was.
And it was Tennessee, Florida in the championship.
Right, right.
But I just remember Bruce Pearl really telling the team, you need to get your head screwed on straight because this is the most important part of the year, technically our number 1 seed doesn't even matter now because we start over when we go into postseason. So going back to the Florida team, that's what's so cool about them right now is they are playing their best basketball.
Right when it matters in here. So we talked about the seeding. We now know who the top 4 seeds are. So top 4 seeds get the double bye, and then the 5, 6, 7, and 8 get a single bye. Everybody else has to play in the first round. Here are your top 4 seeds. You have Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. And then the 5 through 8, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Georgia, and Missouri. A couple questions for the both of you. Of the teams that are getting these byes, of these top 8 teams, who would you not be surprised to do what kind of did Auburn did last year, where they don't look their best and they're out early on?
Well, going off of the way that Tennessee is playing at the current moment, I think they need to get a lot of things together. And I don't know if Nate Ament will be available. I think after watching the Vandy game, it kind of showed how important he is to this team, especially when it comes to come from behind wins. So definitely looking at Tennessee in this one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Nate Ament's status is going to be in question throughout this entire tournament. I would not be surprised if he didn't play. I'm going to backtrack on my statement from last week. I actually don't think Tennessee's quite contenders without him because we just saw that over the weekend. We'll get to that in hour 2. But one of the teams that I would not be surprised if they just pull an Auburn and do exactly what they did last year is Vanderbilt. I mean, they have played so many close games and have just squeaked by some of the lower tier opponents in the SEC. They got a big win in Knoxville, their first since 2017 over the weekend. But still, that one wasn't easy, and Tennessee didn't have their best player. Yeah. So it just gives me a little bit of cause for concern. If they were to go into a matchup against Oklahoma, I have to relook at the bracket again to see who they would potentially play against. But I would, if I'm Vanderbilt, I don't want to play Oklahoma. I don't want to play Texas right now. I definitely do not want to play any of these lower tier teams that are looking to punch their way into the NCAA tournament, which I cannot believe that we are actually talking about Oklahoma being a next 4 team out after losing 9 of their first 10 games in the SEC.
Yeah, but it seems like this team, unlike Auburn, seems like Auburn's going in the opposite direction. Oklahoma seems to be a team that just by heart and will, and I know these things sound like cliches, but just by pure effort and caring and giving a you-know-what about their coach and about their team, might be able to, if things have to break right, might be able to play their way into this. And as Patrick said, after a dismal start in the SEC, and just by record alone, you think, how is this a tournament team? The way they're playing, though, it feels kind of like a tournament team playing the right way at the right time. The team that I'm looking out for is Arkansas. They don't have a lot of depth. They have a lot of star power, and they might have the best player in the league in Darius Acuff, but they don't have a lot of depth. I just think that one game where 2 guys get in foul trouble can really, set off a game in the wrong direction for me. And they haven't shown enough on the back end to show, okay, well, if these 2 guys or these 3 guys go down, they have enough scoring on the back end. I don't see it, and I could be wrong. They could win the whole thing. But I would go with Arkansas as the team that I think that could lose early on here in the SEC tournament. We promised you Todd Golden sound after getting the big win over Kentucky. Here was Coach after the game.
Yeah, he got off to a great start. I thought, he just did a great job picking his spots. When he was at the 3, he was able to get downhill and get to the rim and finish, and we were able to take advantage of the ball screen coverage when he was at the 4, being guarded by some bigger guys that allowed him to get some open threes, and then he drove closeouts well and made good decisions in the paint. We did a bad job on Ortega first half, letting him get some threes, but Tommy's ability to get 17 kind of counteracted that. And, he slowed down a little bit late, but overall he had a fantastic game, and obviously we're a much better team when he's out there. Well, I thought when we got off to a great start, they started playing with a little more tension and a little more physicality and started crashing more to the offensive glass, which allowed us to get runouts on clean rebounds. I thought our bigs did a really good job fighting their crashes and getting the ball out to the guards quick, and they weren't able to get back and organize and transition. So I think that was the main thing that allowed us to get out there and obviously get that advantage in the fast break game today. I think we played with enough pace or force late. Like we were kind of just trying to hold on as opposed to, continue to extend and play. And they were getting real physical. They were selling out defensively. The refs were letting them play physically. And I thought we didn't counteract it with playing, with enough tension in our bodies and being on the attack. We always want to play to win. I thought we were playing a little bit not to lose, to just get to zeros on the clock the last 5 or 6 minutes.
So that's the Florida side of things, and it looks like they're well on their way to possibly being the number 1 seed if things break the right way. Definitely one of the hottest teams in the tournament. We'll flip it over to Kentucky. This is a basketball state. This is a place that lives and dies and breathes basketball. They've now lost, I think it's 5 out of 7 games to end off the season. How in trouble, I know this is grammatically not the correct question, how in trouble do you think that this team is, considering they've lost close, they've lost by blowout, they just haven't looked great at the end of the year?
Right. They've just been so inconsistent. I think they're having such a hard time at just finding a way to win, And I think with watching that game Saturday, it was like they were down by a lot at the very beginning. They fought their way back, and then it was just a blowout the rest of the game. So it's like finding that consistency of how to be a good team throughout the full duration of the game has been an issue for them.
Yeah, and it just seems so up and down because they gave up 92 to Florida a couple of weeks ago. They gave up 90-plus to Texas A&M in that loss. They don't look good offensively in the game against Florida. Patrick, I just think that I just can't trust this Kentucky team. They're talented, and you've mentioned their payroll, the fact that this is a team that's probably one of the highest payroll teams in college basketball, and it just seems like game to game, I just cannot trust them. Even up to last week, I said blindly, I have no basketball analysis to pick the Kentucky Wildcats. I'm literally just picking off vibes of Rupp Arena, and they couldn't even get it done then.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been talking about how there's been a logjam in the middle of the SEC standings for what felt like the last month of the season. And this game this past weekend was so big for Kentucky at home against Florida, a chance to make a statement win. Could have still clinched a double bye even with a poor season to their standards. Instead of, if they were to win that game, they would have jumped up to the 4 seed and had that double bye. With a loss, now they're the 9 seed and have to play on day 1. So it just goes to show how loaded this conference was this year in the middle there. But now they've got to play an LSU team that they should beat, but then a Missouri team that has been streaky at times. And I know Big Blue Nation is not going to take a second-round exit in the SEC tournament. The big thing that I noticed from this game over this past weekend was the defense was abysmal. And, I mean, 24 fast break points for Florida. Kentucky had 4. And all 5 Gator starters had 10-plus points. We had been talking about how deep they are this year. It seems like every game the starters are in double digits. And then there's 1 or 2 guys off the bench, whether it's Klavzar or Hanlogton, that seem to have big games. And, whenever Florida shoots almost 50% from the field, you're never going to win. Yeah,
for the 3rd straight game, Otega Oweh was their leading scorer, 28 points against the Gators. It just feels to me like he's kind of on an island by himself right now. Florida had an early run in this game, and head coach Mark Pope talked about it after the game.
We've done that sometimes to start games where we've been a little bit sticky and a little paralyzed, and they went to the post 2 straight possessions, and their bigs really want to attack, come back to the baseline. We did a poor job on both those defensive possessions, and then we just didn't have any pace on the offensive end, so that was the start of the game, and then. The run later in the half was really tough for us, and we're just trying to figure out manage this. We make poor decisions when we're tired on the floor. We just do. We make poor decisions when we're tired on the floor. So we're trying to find out how to ameliorate that and fix it, and that's been a problem for us the last couple games. And we'll perform better than that. But that was really disappointing. It was just disappointing for us. We give up 19 points in the first half in transition, which is there's really two things you have to do with Florida, and you have to rebound the ball and you have to guard in transition. We did a poor job with that, and a lot of that was part of it was turnovers. Even though the turnover number in the first half wasn't crazy, it was 6, but part of it was just poor shot selection at the rim, which is what they do. And as much as we tried to communicate that and teach that to our team, I did a poor job of getting that messaging across because we continued to do it. So, that was part of it also, was we put ourselves in harm's way during that run just by poor offensive decision-making and some turnovers.